And so our next presentation, we have Viktor Liu from StakerDAO and Graham Tonkin from Stateless. Viktor participated initially with a bunch of different stuff and got he had a Gov token for both on ETH and Tezos through StakerDAO, and then was elected to be part of the strategy committee. And then we have Graham, who is now he's former BD from StakerDAO, and then now he is the co-founder of Stateless Money. And we have him here right now. So awesome. I'll pass it off to you guys. I'm excited for this.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around. Great, Viktor's here with me as well. I'll go ahead and get started here. We're going to start by talking about Pint, the Polkadot Index Network Token, and then Viktor's going to pick it up and talk about how we were able to make Pint possible through the StakerDAO community treasury. So Pint, in short, is a on-chain index token for the Polkadot ecosystem. It allows someone to easily gain diversified exposure to some of the best Polkadot ecosystem projects. Here's a couple of links that you could follow and read a bit more about us. You could, of course, look into the GitHub repo directly as it is open source. So looking at this screen, it's obvious to everyone here that there are a ton of interesting and exciting things going on in the Polkadot ecosystem right now. The projects, the parachains, the companies that are building interesting things. There's really a plethora of them, and it's really exciting to see, especially if you're working in the space day to day and understand who is doing what. From an outsider's perspective, however, when we're looking at a screen like this with all of the cool projects being developed, it's an intimidating thing to look at. From an outside investor's perspective, looking at a list, for example, of the S&P 500 and trying to pick winners, that's a hard job, if not impossible. I think in traditional finance, most individuals have, or at least should, go to things like index funds to make more risk-adjusted and diversified investments. So for most people, the best idea is usually an index fund. Index funds aren't for everyone. They aren't for probably a lot of people on this call that are quite a bit more familiar with individual projects, their technical capabilities, and their ability to deliver the vision they want. But for the average person, I think it's safe to say that an index fund is the best way to invest in an ecosystem. And we believe that the Polkadot ecosystem is in a great position to have one to allow for newcomers to capture some of this value that's being created so early. And Pint, in short, is an index token. It's a fully backed on-chain token that has a curated set of assets behind it that governance chooses. So the governance will choose which assets are included, as well as their allocations within this index. As mentioned, it's governed as a DAO. So there is a council that governs all of the parameters of the index directly and how it operates. It is fee-based, and there's a buyback and burn mechanism. So the buyback and burn mechanism, I'm sure we're all aware, if you are staking assets like Polkadot or any of these other parachain assets, you will get a small reward every so often to pay you back for staking those assets. What we've chosen to do instead with the assets that are staked within Pint is to aggregate those rewards and then use them to buy back Pint. Governance then decides what portion of those rewards will be burnt, in effect distributing those rewards through aggregation of value or consolidation, kind of like a share buyback rather than a dividend distribution. Governance then, of course, decides what percentage to keep as a fee for operating this product, because at the end of the day, Pint is intended to be a sovereign, self-sustaining DAO. So this treasury is going to be used to compensate the governors as well as community members who are working to ensure the best index product possible. Why do we need this? Well, number one, simplicity. For most people, the researching, holding, staking, all of these things are quite intimidating. So being able to recognize that the Polkadot ecosystem is quickly developing and there's a lot of interesting projects, the most simple way to get involved is sometimes the best. and especially if it's a diversified entry into the ecosystem. If somebody from the outside hears of one or two projects, they'll likely be too intimidated to look into the many other interesting projects, so they'll be consolidated into one or two of these tokens specifically. And then there will be other index or indices offered by exchanges and centralized service providers, but we feel that a on-chain, DeFi accessible, DeFi native index is the best idea for the ecosystem as well as the people involved. Having governance and management on-chain is incredibly valuable, as well as knowing that any assets held in the index are all managed on-chain as well. Gives people, or should give people, a bit more insight into how things are being done, managed, and how the governance will evolve over time. So Pint is initially intended for at least two different entities. Of course, there's the average person that is excited about Polkadot, eager to capture some of this growth, but is unsure about the entire process behind it. Doing the due diligence into each protocol to determine if they're noise or value, to figure out how to buy and stake their assets, to choose a validator. All of these things I think are quite intimidating for some people. And they are probably, or most definitely, too busy to actually participate in the governance of these assets. So as the protocols distribute this governance token, most people I don't think are going to be able to stay up to date, especially in the long run, with the governance progression of that protocol. So they simply don't care about it and can't stay active in governance. And then protocols, I think, will be quite into Pint as well, or index products on Polkadot, because they probably have a concerns community that is a bit technically limited by how their on-chain treasury works. They might be generating great revenue, have that treasury rising, and may have tens of or hundreds of millions of dollars sitting in a treasury in their own native token. That native token, of course, is incredibly volatile, and it's a central point of risk that communities are going to have to deal with. So we believe Pint will position itself nicely as a treasury reserve asset for a lot of these protocols, and communities may decide to take 1, 2, 3% of their native asset treasury, add them to the Pint index in return for greater diversified exposure. So protocols could reduce their risk slightly of holding 100% native asset treasury to have a slightly more diversified exposure to all of the other interesting projects in the ecosystem. Additionally, protocols will likely enjoy the investor type of people holding indices. For example, an index holder is typically a bit more long-term, less short-term speculative, and looking for that price pump. They understand that the gains are much more diversified and spread out across the ecosystem rather than the short-term runs of individual tokens. And lastly, protocols that include their token in the index are also able to qualify for parachain lease offering financing far into the future. Once the Pint treasury is robust and generating substantial revenue, protocols included in the index will be able to actually apply for financing for a PLO, for example, or utilize those funds held by Pint. And if approved by governance, it could be a viable tool for long-term financing for these PLOs. So governance of any DAO is, of course, one of the most contentious points. I think we found, or I found personally, that having very active community governance gets quite tolling, and there's often a governance fatigue that sets in a lot of projects. So rather than have everybody involved in every decision-making process in Pint, we've decided to start with a consolidated council of 7 people. We have representatives from Akala, ChainSafe, Hashkey, Hypersphere Ventures, Parity, Polychain Capital, and Stateless Money. And so this council is coordinating its efforts to get Pint off the ground, get it launched. And then soon after that, we want to include as many community members in the governance of Pint as well. So we imagine that community members will be writing in proposals to change allocations, change structure, set up new types of parameters, for example, and governance for Pint. And this is where we want to change the 7-person council to include any community members that are actively participating. The second layer of governance after the council being the most active managers of Pint, is the constituent committee. This constituent committee is a rather passive layer to governance. It includes a representative from each asset that is held on the index, and this constituent committee is able to retain veto power over the council's actions. So if there is a proposal to do something that the majority of the constituent committee members don't like, they're able to veto that action. And the constituent committee is also able to nominate new council members. So the council grows with those that are supporting and acting as the constituents in the index want. And we've created governance like this to have not an adversarial approach, but ensuring that the assets that are included in the index are very much in control of the index themselves. They don't need to manage the day-to-day intricacies, but they are able to manage the council who does manage the day-to-day intricacies. So this is very much a index created for the average person who wants to gain exposure, but also for the assets that are actually included in there. So giving these protocols good control over the index that they could participate in and gain stability from. I didn't want to get into many of the technical aspects of how Pint works today because Matthias and Redwin of ChainSafe will actually be giving a more in-depth talk tomorrow about XEM and how we were able to utilize it in Pint to offer this product across parachains with a lot of different assets while being able to coordinate an on-chain product where anyone will be able to mint and redeem Pint natively in a trustless way. So now I'd like to introduce Viktor from StakerDAO, and StakerDAO being the project that made all of this possible. ChainSafe and Stateless Money coordinated and built the Pint project, but StakerDAO and the community from StakerDAO were actually the financiers behind Pint, and we were able to make it happen with their work. So Viktor, if I could invite you on now from the strategy committee to keep on going.
Sure, thanks. Thank you, Graham. So now I will talk about StakerDAO, the cross-chain asset factory. Now go to the next slide. So the special thing about StakerDAO is that now we are in the process to be more decentralized, but also we are present in many different chains such as Algorand, Cosmos, Tezos, Ethereum, and Polkadot. So from my first experience actually by being a customer of StakerDAO, where Graham was the part of the business development team. So my first product was also an index product called Blend, which also consists of 4 different assets, which also includes Polkadot. So now to the next slide. So the way it works, how we came to this project. So Graham introduced a new kind of index product with ChainSafe. The way it works was basically that they propose the concept how it works. So we, the staker token holder committee, decided to vote whether we want to have this product in place, and we basically funded with our treasury to make sure to make this into a reality, because this is what we as a cross-chain committee would like to have. And we also have roadmaps as this through the success of Blend and also Pint. We also decide to have a broader roadmap, what StakerDAO will do. Next slide. So for our roadmap, we decide that we have to continue to decentralize StakerDAO, which means that we need more members. So that means like the current strategy committee that we have has to be enlarged. That means we need more members and also subcommittees, which has different expertise. And also through the experience that we have by having index products, web product, we are planning to introduce new products as well, and as many new chains as they are now emerging through our StakerDAO incubator. Since we are now represented in many different chains, especially on 5, that's why it's very important that we need community representation, because we, the community, we have a lack. We cannot be an expert of every chain. That's why we need dedicated people like Graham, who is an expert in Polkadot, to make sure to inform us about the trends, what we have to build, what we can build on. And for all these 3 steps mentioned, we hope that we are able to increase the membership in our community and having more community member involved as well. So thank you, everyone. And if you have further questions, then ask me or Graham and join us for a pint.
Wow, great ending. I would love to join you for a pint. No, super awesome presentation. I mean, as a ChainSafer, I'm super stoked on, and someone that's active in the Polkadot ecosystem. This is all awesome. I'm super stoked on it. And we do have some questions for you guys if you guys have a moment. So the first one is, how far off is Pint away from participation in the parachain slot auctions?
So let's take a step back here and talk about kind of the long-term vision and how we're implementing Pint. This kind of goes into one of the questions as well. The Pint palettes and everything that's being developed today, the grand vision here is for anyone to come in and be able to manage their own sort of ETF or index-like token on chain. So theoretically, someone could start developing thematic indexes, such as a DeFi-based only DeFi native token on Polkadot to launch, or very specific groups of assets. So this is a vision that we're playing with in the long run. That would be a parachain that would allow for structured financial products to launch natively and be governed natively on Polkadot. That's quite a big thing to imagine. So we've decided to start it back with a much more scaled approach. And that is simply launching as our palette integrated on the back of another parachain. So it looks like we will integrate the Pint palette with Akala, and we will have a launch with Akala to do this natively within their parachain. So we won't be launching our own parachain per se, but we'll piggyback as an integrated palette on others until we've determined that there's significant interest for other structured products that we could then go and launch. To follow up on another question, Jimmy, if you don't mind me just going through them.
Please, go ahead.
Does Pint have plans for a Kasama variant? Short answer is yes. Like many different assets in the Polkadot space, there are wild cousins that will launch on Kasama. We believe first a launch on Mandela for all of the testing with project tokens will come first. We will likely have a Kasama cousin coming quite soon after that. The name we've been considering is Shot, because shots always come before pints. So we'll launch on Kasama as a Wild West testnet, just as it's intended for, with the goal then to launch in Q1 sometime on Polkadot as well, once a handful of parachains are integrated and XCMP is working well.
Awesome. I mean, they don't always have to come to pints.
True. Get them as you please. And someone said, where can you buy StakerDAO token? Yeah, go to CoinMarketCap and figure that one out for yourself. Pint is going to be a DeFi native token, so we're really focused only on dexes and to exist primarily where DeFi exists.
Awesome. That sounds super great. Amazing stuff that I know we're all... Oh, another question. In the long-term vision, does it mean that StakerDAO and Pint will offer a possibility to the community to build their own Pint index?
I'll speak for Viktor here, but please do add in, Viktor, if you'd like. I guess that's not even in the long term. Well, assuming Pint is live and people are able to create their own customizable indexes, then the answer to your question is yes. But in the short term, the answer to your question is already yes. I know the StakerDAO community is looking for interesting proposals to finance. So if you do have an idea, just head over to the community and understand what the willingness to accept your idea and to finance your idea is. So there is the possibility to have your idea financed by the StakerDAO community treasury if you find traction and are able to deliver a viable proposal to them. And for Michael, are there plans to bridge Pint to any VM chains or as an ERC20? Yes, I think likely just how the ecosystem is evolving in general, that we will see many Polkadot assets go over to ERC20 assets and become accessible. So I think the viability of having Pint as a treasury reserve asset will likely expand to protocols on Ethereum as well, who might want to further diversify outside of what they could access today. And yeah, participate in the StakerDAO community. I think the best option is typically Discord. So head over to Discord, join the channel, and join us in the Pint discussion channel or any of the channels that you might be interested in.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. That was an amazing presentation. I hope everyone goes and participates and checks them out. It's all great stuff. So thank you guys for your time. We loved having you. And yeah, thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Jimmy, and thanks everyone for sticking around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.